Fred Chapman from kindergarten went to school with him. And I think he was mentioned on your athletic tape about, yes, about never giving up, never, you know, will never say no, would always try. And he just did that with everything that he did. He liked to be out there, he liked to be with people.
Fred Chapman. Very quiet, very studious. You know, he was a good student.
James Wesley Johnson. He was a cut up from the word go. Don't really know what happened to him after graduation other than I think getting out into the workforce. And I'm sure whatever he had done, he has probably done well at it. Enjoyed his friendship in school immensely. Deborah Rogan was probably one of my favorite friends that I got when I went over to New Haven. I can remember going to some of the events at school and somebody coming out and saying something, and all I would have to do would be to mention Deborah's name. And they just kind of maybe changed their attitude about me if they weren't too sure because of being out from Meade, whether or not they wanted a closeness like that. But Deborah and I just happened to hit it off.
Tom Torres, which we used to call Taco. He's involved with the union and everything. He was always involved in stuff at school, playing sports and everything.
Olivia Gant, they came into the community a little bit later. I believe, if I recall right, she had a very good voice. There were a few of the Gants that were the Gant singers that got together and would do that. She was on the basketball team. In fact, she was on the basketball team when we won the state championship in, I think, 1961. She went with a fellow classmate. They ended up marrying.
She was a very popular girl, kind of quiet, but she was good. I haven't seen her in, God, I don't know how long. She married Ralph Diaz.
Sharon Fissler, just a good all-around, what you would call a sweet type girl, I think. She was in the secretarial or commercial aspect in school, well liked by everybody, would do anything for you.
Peggy Crawford. She was a fun-loving girl. We used to have parties over at her house.
John Crawford, just met him and I think probably the 9th. I don't believe it was before that. Excellent trumpet player, very studious. He knew what he wanted to do and that's what he accomplished. Knew him from the time that we went to kindergarten. Used to walk to the old Meade school. We'd walk for everything that was needed, and back then times were different. You could walk for miles and not worry about anything on it. And whenever you needed to go anywhere, if you just called, he'd always take the time to say, yeah, no problem, you know, we can either walk here or ride the bikes or do something, and go there and do that. He has been a good friend, called down, checked to see how things were going with me here currently, and I definitely appreciate that in him. Dwayne Duffy was on the quiet side, but he was definitely a good friend. Met him after we went into New Haven. His family moved in a little bit later. Other than knowing he was always very studious and education was real important to him.
Sharon Schiller. See her all the time. She's a good soul. We've been friends for a long time.
Marianne Perriott. Met her when I went over to the high school. She's, well, she is out there all by herself, I think, in having a good time. I mean, you talk about enjoying life, she is. If she can't make you laugh, nobody's going to. Has a heart of gold. She would do anything for anybody, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to do anything for her. Nancy Brockman, met her in New Haven. Still very good friends with her. We, in fact, probably get together maybe once every 2 months or something like that and have We just made a little journey up to Lexington for lunch and an outing, but used to go over to her mom and dad's. Her mother was a writer for the New Haven Herald and wrote little things as to what was going on in the neighborhood, what the different families were doing, and that was just part of our thing. We would even just get together and talk about that. With her being in town, it was real handy.
Nancy Brockman, oh my God. I see her quite a bit. She's fun-loving. We used to have great pajama parties at her house. I don't know if Sharon said that. She's just a good kid.
I'll actually do both together. We have Walt Lee and Ron Lee, who were uncle and nephew. And they were both in basketball, football. I believe Walt, or Perry Lee as we called him, may have even been in baseball. I am not real sure. Perry had a hearing impediment and it did not bother him in the least, and nobody let it bother anybody. It was just as though he were no different and would talk and go right along like you or I would. He was our class president, I think probably all 4 years. Met him when I came to New Haven, an extremely bright individual. With it being a small class, everybody kind of did everything together. So whoever happened to have a car, we were going somewhere that night, we would get in the car, just kind of load people and go and do it. Al was one of those good guys that we went to do that with.
Claudia Anderson, she lives down the road. She more or less kept to herself. She was kind of quiet.
Claudia Anderson, went to kindergarten through graduation with her. She lived out on North Avenue. We were in, as well as being in things in the school, we were in community activities and did things, and how we got around out and meet at that point in time was walk or ride your bike, and we would just go by everybody's house, pick them up as to who was next in line, and we'd walk on to the next one and get them to either go to the school to play or go to the corners to do whatever we were going to do. Ralph played football, played in some of the sports. Real nice guy. We always had a good time together.
62. Juanita Deinzer, she's a character. She was in cheerleading and everything, and we used to hang around together. Matter of fact, I still see her.
Juanita Deinzer, met her when I went over to New Haven. She was a cheerleader. She was very friendly, very active in the group that we participated in. Mary Lou Garcia, she had been a friend since kindergarten. I talked to them probably once a week, if not more. We've stayed that close of friends for that long. Her sister used to be babysitters for us. Her mom, of course, was an excellent cook, and I like Mexican food, so that worked out real well. She has a very nice family, hasn't changed much, and treasure her friendship greatly.
Oh my God, Mary Lou Garcia. Mary Lou, I see her. She lives over here. We're neighbors. We do things together. Her and I were very mischievous.
Knew him a lot of years. He was definitely going places. He had that kind of mindset from the time that he was even younger. He goofed around with a few of us, but was more of a mindset and in an academic program as well. Carol Cedar lived next to the Farmers Elevator in town. Got to know them when I went to the New Haven schools. I think got to know her most probably in band. She played clarinet, I played the French horn. And on all the band trips you have an opportunity to get to know one another and become a little bit better friends. Carol was a cheerleader in the secretarial or commercial programs in school. Sharon Fissler, just a good all-around, what you would call a sweet type girl, I think. She was in the secretarial or commercial aspect in school, well liked by everybody, would do anything for you.
Alfred Petty, he's funny. He's a cop. I think he's retired now. We used to just, everybody connected.
Connie Cornett lived in New Haven. Met her when I went over to New Haven. She was in a lot of the secretarial programs. I can't remember. I don't think she was a cheerleader, but she may have played in the band. And there were probably about 15 of us girls that hung around a little bit more together, and she was probably one of them. Janet Rocker was from out on Hagen Road. Her folks owned a farm. She married a local boy a few years older than her. They have a farm. Needless to say, was always into all of the homemaking and I just remember her doing that. She was a very down-to-earth, common, very likable, very nice person. Gerald was kind of a quiet young man until you got to know him. He could break loose when he was with a few of the classmates, but most of the time if he was together in a larger group, you didn't hear too much from him, but he was an extremely good guy and was glad that I could have him part of my life.
And this is my brother, Paul Perriott. He's deceased now. He was a scholar, he was a brain, he just, he was a good kid. That was my brother.
Sandra Chamberlain, her mom and dad were both teachers at New Haven. And she was in a lot of the secretarial programs and so on. I really think we were close and did a lot of things with everybody. Joe Mullen was one of the Old Mead School's friends. His folks used to have a Great Dane, and as kids we would put saddles on these Great Danes to ride them around the backyard. They were that big, and they had two of them, I believe, and I can just remember doing that, but always at the house on 26 Mile Road. We could walk down there and have a good time. His mom would always have something and would have us in, and we could spend the day doing that. Edith Mack. Edith has to be one of the most fun-loving and or enjoying life type person. She could find something good in anybody.
Edith Mack, she was funny. She's good. She just got married, I think about 5 years ago.
Betty Sherman, or Dr. Betty Sherman Youngblood now. Real proud of her. Got to know her from the time that I saw her at the Harris School out on New Haven Road and then over in New Haven. But real down-to-earth person. Definitely you knew was going to go a long way because academics was important to her. Getting ahead in that particular way and helping out. She is a terrific and a fast basketball player for the type of basketball that we played back then. She would have been great in the full court type basketball that we had now. Track, same thing. She was very small but very quick and very good.
Betty Sherman is a professor. She is chancellor or president of Lake Superior College. Her husband had just passed away, and she built a beautiful home here on Ray Center Road. She's going to be retiring soon.
Jimmy was quite a guy. We would work on the floats and do things together, and he was just somebody that you could honestly just stop and talk to him at any point in time about anything, and he would always give you time. I don't think there was anybody in our class that wouldn't do that.